Humans of the cardboard, welcome back to a Just Nuts discussion video. We're covering one of the newest free agent cards revealed at the very end of Supreme Darkness, Clockwork Knight. It's a really cool Link-1 that really helps out a lot of machine decks. And I think the coolest part about this card is it's a free agent. It applies to a bunch of different ones, so it is not tied down to one archetype. It's not pigeonholed in that way. And that's one of the beautiful things about Yu-Gi-Oh! Is all the different combinations of cards you can do. And this card definitely will show that. So I guess before we get into what archetypes this card can help, we need to revisit what this card actually does, as well as the card that it searches, which is pretty important. It's going to definitely set the context for everything we're going to talk about here today. So let's get started. This is Clockwork Knight with a K. That's very important to know. He is a Link-1 machine earth monster. He points left. It'd be a little bit better if he pointed down, but it's not the end of the world. He's still just good in general. He takes any non-Link machine monster with 1,000 or less attack as material. So pretty generic. That is a lot of different monsters that can go into him. And he has two different effects. Also pretty good for a Link-1. So the first effect reads, if this card is Link summoned, you can send one face-up continuous spell you control to the graveyard as cost to add a Clockwork Knight from your deck to your hand. That is a very specific continuous spell. We will cover that right after we finish this card. But yeah, some slight things with this effect. It does have to send a continuous spell specifically, so we are looking for specific archetypes that might already utilize continuous spells pretty consistently. So that way this card has an automatic target with the archetype you're using. And then also, like, there are going to be some archetypes that have good synergy with Clockwork Knight and some that don't. So you either like it or you're fine, because it has two different effects and both have viability. And you'll see that, like, some archetypes will use both effects, some archetypes may only appreciate one. Some archetypes may not even care about either, because they just sit back and they say, we'll just take a Link-1 machine that keeps us into machines that I can clear my machine off the field for. So there's some cool things there. Anyway, second effect says you can target one machine monster with 1,000 or less attack in your graveyard. I don't know, like the one you linked off for this guy. Tribute another machine monster you control. That's the one thing. He can't tribute himself. He has to tribute another body, so you do have to put another body on field. And if you do, special summon the targeted monster in defense position. This effect's pretty strong for a Link-1, especially considering it doesn't even negate the monster you're reborning. So you're going to see there's a couple instances of some cards that could potentially be looped around. Cards that are not hard once per turn. So you're able to, like, summon them once, get their effect, link them off for this card, then you use this card to reborn them, and then those monsters trigger again and just get you extra value pretty freely. So yeah, I think this card's pretty dang good for that. Obviously his effects are hard once per turn. Now let's take a look at the card you're searching off of him. This is Clockwork Knight with an N, a continuous spell. It has three main effects. The first effect reads, all face-up monsters on the field become machine monsters. That's low-key a floodgate. Fiendsmith stuff, the Fiend pile decks, keeping them out of Yaman, the Unchained engine, as well as stuff like Dragon Link. Like, there are just decks that, like, this is actually a really annoying effect for. That's like a real floodgate. Secondly, all machine monsters you control gain 5/5. For stats, your opponent's machine monsters lose 5/5. So you're getting a 1,000 advantage on all your monsters at the same time. That's really cool. And lastly, if this card's engraved, you can banish this card to then discard a card as well as cost to add a Earth machine monster from deck to hand. So even if this card does get out, it is an annoying floodgate, or you choose to discard or send it yourself, you can then just use it to search another Earth machine from your deck. Generically, that is any Earth machine, which, like, a lot of different good machine monsters just happen to be Earth. That's a really good search. So hopefully that sets the stage. There are going to be some archetypes that care about Clockwork Knight a lot. There are going to be some archetypes that just really don't, and we'll get to that as we go. So I'm not going to spend too much time on any one archetype. We'll just go one at a time here, though. First and foremost, Cyber Dragons. This is the one archetype that has the best synergy with these cards by far. This archetype doesn't have the cleanest continuous spell, but there are other engines you can play in with this deck to potentially add continuous spells to be able to send, as well as the Cyber Dark engine has a really good continuous spell. We'll talk about them a little bit more. But the coolest thing is the Cyber Dragon Contact Fuse mechanic. Once you have Clockwork Knight up, all monsters on the field become machines. You can take any Cyber Dragon monster and basically board wipe your opponent's entire monster lineup because they all count as machines, so you can just contact fuse into Chimera Fortress Dragon. This guy, because he just takes one Cyber Dragon plus one or more machines, and you can take monsters from anywhere on the field. So once you make everything machine, you can just board wipe the whole board. Secondly, Cyberdark Realm is really interesting. So Core can search any cyber spell or trap, which includes Cyberdark Realm. That's low-key really nice. That really actually comes up here because this card searches any Cyberdark monster on activation, and then it can additional normal summon once per turn for a Cyberdark. So it's basically e-telling out another body to help you keep extending, and then there's your continuous spell to be able to send for Clockwork Knight. So really, really good synergy there, and actually get some decent plays going, utilizing a small Cyberdark package. Last thing I want to mention with Cyber Dragon specifically, I put it on my prediction list this year that Cyber Dragon would get support. They have not, and they probably will not this year. I think it's immensely more likely that next year it comes. Literally, and then I'm predicting either a cover set, a core set with cover support, so 7 to 9 cards there, or just a straight up structure deck for Cyber Dragon. They are technically next in the structure deck R series after Blue Eyes. They could just get their own structure deck, 8 more cards there. There's a world where Konami maybe even tries to tie in Cyber Dragon and Cyber Dark into one structure deck and have even better synergy with Realm and stuff, and this card could even get better for them. So this is the one archetype we'll talk a little bit extra about, but the rest should be shorter. All right, next up, Crystron. Crystron's really nice. They just got a handful of new cards. They have Smyger, who is exactly 1,000 attack, so he can go right into Clockwork Knight. And he just banishes himself from grave to add a Crystron spell or trap, which they just so happen in their new support to get a searching continuous spell. So really good synergy there. The only locks in this archetype lock you into machines, so we do not care. If you use this to Clockwork Knight, you can use another effect later in your turn to discard Clockwork Knight, and then use Clockwork Knight to search something like a Therian King Regulus, who helps protect your board. He's just an Omni Negate. Right now we're just adding Omni Negates to the board. Really, really cool. Yeah, I think this one actually works pretty nicely. I'm actually curious to see if people actually can make Crystron play in modern day. I also think it's pretty good into like the Mulch Armies, which is kind of cool. Could actually have some legs as a rogue deck. Okay, then into like straight up Cyberdark. This is also another one. I've seen some combos already where there are now like 1.5 card combos with Cyberdark that can get you the double Omni negating boss monster, fusion boss monster, as well as Regulus, which is pretty good. You're just looking at 3 Omni negates off of like 1.5 cards. That's cool. I still don't think this deck has enough legs to play competitively like that, but they are pretty consistent, and maybe that also factors into Cyber Dragon as well, that like Cannon can search any Cyberdark monster like Claw, and Claw can just search the Cyberdark Realm. So like you could have 9 copies of Realm essentially if you don't even count Core. So you could be talking 12 plus copies of Realm to get a continuous on the field and then go from there. So there is definitely some potential there, although the Cyberdarks really don't yield that much benefit overall with like what they actually do. So we'll see. But again, if a structure comes, ties them together, again, we could be looking at something different. So I don't know. Keep that in mind. All right, Earth Machine or Infinitrax, whatever you want to call them. This is definitely a huge player here. Low-key, a huge winner from this core set at the very end specifically, because we get this new LINK-1, and they also get the new quick play spell that we also covered a couple days ago that helps them just tutor out level 10s, and this archetype's known for putting big level 10 trains on the field. So really, really cool. Cool synergy here. Harvester can go into it. I believe Trencher can also go into it. And lo and behold, yet again, another continuous spell playing deck that just has a Searcher on activation, adds your 1-card combo, and then you just send this for Clockwork Knight, send Clockwork Knight off of something else, boom, you go ahead and get yourself a setup for searching Therian King Regulus, or honestly the entire deck. Like the entire Earth Machine deck is Earth Machine. So Rhoda for any card in your deck seems pretty good. I love that. Like Super Excess Bullet Train, this is a good example. I've seen combos where you're searching him or Regulus off of this effect. They have a couple different effects that can search Earth Machines, but yeah, there's a couple, so it's cool. Next engine, Primite. I really want to make a video very soon talking about Primite more in depth as well, on like what decks can actually utilize Primite that maybe you didn't expect could, or maybe just like the top 10 archetypes, whatever. This engine's really cool to me. I really think this engine has legs, especially in Mulcharmy format, where like this can be just like an extra backbone engine for your deck to be like, I'm not playing into the Mulcharmies, but I'm going to get 1 or 2 interactions that are pretty powerful, or just follow up as well from this card. And then I'm going to like sit back and say, you know what I mean? You got no draws, but I got 2-3 interruptions because I'm playing like my baby side engines to like get me there with hand traps and win duels. Like, it's actually pretty cool. So they start with a continuous spell. This is their main searcher. On activation, it searches one of their other cards, and then it can also once per turn just summon any vanilla monster out of the hand deck or graveyard. So pretty good value card. It goes +2 on turn 1. It goes +1 every other turn because you can use that reborn effect or summon from hand deck or grave effect every turn. It's pretty good. There's some, and so you can just play a vanilla off of this card that is less than 1,000 attack. And what I really appreciate about this card, especially combined with some of these other machine decks, is it does not use your normal at all. So you can just get a less than 1,000 attack machine to go into Clockwork Knight, and you have not normaled. So you could send this, get the other Clockwork Knight, and you haven't even normaled yet, which is really, really good, especially for something like Cyber Dragon. So I really do think this could be a really interesting assisting engine to toss in with Cyber Dragon going forward. So I like that quite a bit. All right, Ancient Gears. You have to consider this in there. Honestly, the funniest thing about this, because they do actually have a couple of continuous spells that I think they play. This one's actually pretty good, because this card just adds an Ancient Gear spell or trap, so that one's just actually really good. This one, though, gives you like protection on your Ancient Gears, kind of like the low-key, like a much worse version. It's like if these cards were combined, it would equal the Tenpai Field spell, but this one does the protection, the other one does the engine searching, yada yada. But these cards are interesting because you could send them for Clockwork Knight, and because Ancient Gear is generally known for being a go second OTK deck, you could search out Clockwork Knight, which is going to give all of your monsters at least a 5/5 boost, or as well as lowering your opponent's 5/5, so it makes OTKing even easier. Not to mention, this deck doesn't do a ton going first, but adding Clockwork Knight as a potential line, you could potentially search Clockwork Knight by sending one of these cards, then send Clockwork Knight and just play one Regulus, and now it's also getting you to an extra Omni Negate going first, where, you know what I mean, add that into their going first board. It's like Tenpai, where it doesn't have to be out of this world good, but if you can make 2-3 little interruptions going first, when people make you go first in games 2 or 3, it actually could lead to like extra wins by just adding an Omni to whatever your board would have been. So I think it adds for some extra cool lines, and it actually could be worth messing around with in Ancient Gear. Spiral. I think this is the last archetype we're talking about here, and then we'll get to some interesting cards that kind of generically work with it, and we'll see if that, if they become a thing as well. But Spiral Quick Fix, I think the most important thing here is looping. Quick Fix is not once per turn, so every time he's normal or special, he adds a Spiral, a Gear card? I think it's Gear specifically. It means his targets aren't like always the craziest targets, but like, man, they're free, and man, there's, you know what I mean? Like, they want to get to 2 or 3 of them throughout the turn anyway. So being able to extra loop this guy one more time is really, really strong. So I think that's pretty good, that like it's just kind of free and built in now, rather than you having to resolve like a machine duplication or something like that. You actually can loop him at least a second time, if not a third time, without even having to go through a machine dupe line to open like a crazy good hand, which is cool. So I'm sure this is a card that'll see play in this deck. Of that, I have no doubt. All right, and then for some generic one, not generic, but like interesting cards that like I don't think the archetype is like good enough, or like what they do doesn't do enough. But Mech Lord is funny, right? They have a searching normal summon, and then they have a continuous spell that searches once per turn. But like, which is cool, and like I read these cards and I'm like, these are cool, and some of the boss monsters are like low-key funny, and like they could be good in certain matchups, but like they're not going to be good enough across a field of decks. It makes you wonder, like, if Konami ever did come back around and give Mech Lords like 5 more cards, and like give them a real boss monster that they can get out reasonably easy, and then 1 or 2 other like good main deck monsters, I was like, maybe this could actually be something kind of spicy here, because they've got the machine, they've got the normal summon, they've got the continuous spell, like they could be something kind of funny here. But Yeah, I don't think they have enough overall, even though the synergy's there otherwise. Toy Box is another one, continuous spell that puts Toy Tank in rotation. Now, the engine doesn't work on its own because you have to have a separate card to be able to send Toy Tank, so that way it'll summon itself back to the field. But Toy Tank also is a machine with 1,000 attacks. So once you set Toy Tank off of Toy Box, send it to summon it back, you can then go right into this guy and send your Toy Box to get Clockwork Knight and go from there. So there is some small synergy there, but it's not a good enough engine on its own to facilitate this play. So there's that. Disablaster is a really interesting card. This guy's just a 500 attack, level 5 light machine that just says, like, if there's no cards in a column, you could just summon him to that column. It's pretty good in that regard that, like, he just is really free. Like, it feels like there's always going to be one column with no cards in it, so you could just plop this guy down so freely. And again, kind of like Primite, not taking your normal, maybe it could just be a good card in another deck that's already messing with Clockwork Knight. So that's cool. Cyber Dragon definitely comes to mind. He's also a machine dupe target, so that's also kind of cool. Gadget Gamer. This is this card on normal summon adds a level 1 machine from deck to hand, so it's something that I expect to be like the craziest thing in the world, but like, you normal it, you plus, you link in a Clockwork Knight, you know, you potentially have the ability to summon him back, and he's able to pull a Morphtronic monster from hand. So like, yeah, there could be something that this card and Clockwork Knight are able to facilitate, but I don't know enough about Morphtronics to really figure out, or what other level 1 machines really would be nasty with this. So it's interesting, but I honestly just don't know enough about it. Righty Driver and Lefty Driver. So Righty Driver on normal just specials Lefty Driver, so then you can link one of them into Clockwork Knight and then tribute the other to Reborn and go from there. I don't know what else you want, but yeah, they're there. They have synergy. Mecha Phantom Beast O-Lion. This guy is legal now because Hulk is banned. And if Hulk was legal, this card, Clockwork Knight, would be so much crazier, because there definitely are some tuner getting shenanigans. But yeah, just normal beat O-Lion, link him off for Clockwork Knight, get the Mecha Phantom Beast token, tribute the token to Reborn O-Lion, and go from there. He'd be your tuner. Boom. There you go. But yeah, I get why we can't, because why Hulk is banned. And then Scrap Recycler. So this is the card that I actually think there's a world where this card could be teched into a certain deck. Like, potentially Orcust in the past has messed with this card, but I don't know if they need it now with their new support. I think what's more likely is Earth Machine could potentially mess with this card, because they can get it out of the deck even, potentially. Like, not even start with it, but like get to it later. And then link it off for Clockwork Knight and Reborn it. He is not once per turn. So just being able to... you know what I mean? Just being able to like reset him and get him to Foolish Burial twice, and even potentially utilize that draw effect too, could be really, really good. So yeah, that's another interesting one to note. And the last one I think here is Rescue Ace Hydrant. As far as I know, the combos that Rescue Ace utilize, I don't think Clockwork Knight would be super crucial. Hydrant is a card they put on field every turn, but they already can just make Anima off of him. He's a level 1. They can also make Almirage if they normal him. I don't think having Clockwork Knight over those cards would be like uber important. I guess the ability to maybe Reborn Hydrant in an alternate way could come up, but the deck is Machines and Warriors too, so like you have to put another machine on field to be able to get Hydrant back anyway. So I just don't know if it's actually like doing that much better than those cards. Like, it may just replace those cards in this deck because of like that possibility, but I don't know enough about the deck to know if that's like something that's crucial. But yeah, that's basically it. Those are a handful of cards that also have good synergy with it, and then obviously the big engines, you know, Spiral, Ancient Gear, Primite, Earth Machine, Cyberdark, Crystron, and of course Cyber Dragon. Some cool stuff here. I can't wait to mess around with more of these decks, especially some of them even together. Like I said with Primite, like Primite can kind of jam with any of these archetypes if you want, and it actually be a nice additional backbone to whatever deck, especially with Mulcharmies running around. If you're expecting to get Full Host in any given game, it could be nice to have like the ability to end on 2-3 interruptions by only giving maybe one draw. It's really good. So we'll have to see. Plus, obviously, the potential of more support for any of these archetypes going forward. That obviously is exciting as well. So the sky is the limit here. But I'm out of here for today. Thank you so much for watching, as always, guys. Just kind of a surface video on like what archetypes I think can maybe utilize this little package. But I think there's some legit implications here, and some of these decks did get legitimately better because of this card. So let me know your guys' thoughts down below. Is there any archetypes that I didn't mention that you think was worth mentioning that I definitely missed? Or which one of these is just your favorite, and any just more nitty-gritty details on any of these individual archetypes, on how more in depth you could go on how you plan on utilizing the new Clockwork Knight stuff. I'd love to hear that as well. But I'm out of here for today. Thank you so much for watching, as always, guys. I will see you in the next video. Subscribe if you haven't. Peace.